Close your eyes and picture this. It's 300,000 years ago. You're standing in a world that looks nothing like Earth today. The air smells different. The sky holds colors you've never seen. Creatures walk this land that would make your heart stop with wonder and terror. You are human, but barely. Your species just appeared on this planet. You have no fire to call your own, no tools except rocks you pick up, no shelter except caves you stumble into, no language except grunts and gestures. Yet somehow you're alive. You're thinking. You're solving problems that would kill any other creature. You're taking the first tentative steps toward becoming the most successful species Earth has ever known. Tonight, we're going back to humanity's true beginning, to a time when being human meant something completely different, when survival was measured not in comfort, but in heartbeats, when every sunrise was a miracle. So settle in, let your mind drift back through time, and discover how your earliest ancestors learned to be human on a planet that was still figuring out what that meant. Before we journey into deep time together, please like this video and subscribe if these ancient stories speak to you. Every like helps us reach other restless souls who need gentle history to carry them into sleep. Your support keeps these whispered tales alive. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is in your corner of the world. Drop it in the comments. It's beautiful to think that across all these time zones we're connected by the same human story that began 300,000 years ago. Tonight's journey takes us to the very beginning of our kind, to Africa, where the first true humans opened their eyes to a world so different it might as well have been another planet. We'll walk with them through their daily struggles, feel what they felt, see through their eyes as they invented what it meant to be human. This isn't just history, it's your story. The story is written in your DNA, the memories that live in your bones. So dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's go home to where it all began. You wake up 300,000 years ago, in what will someday be Morocco, but this place bears no resemblance to any Earth you know. The air tastes of copper and green growing things. When you breathe, you taste rain that fell yesterday, flowers that bloomed this morning, and something else. Something wild and untamed that makes your skin prickle with awareness. The sky above you shifts between colors that don't exist anymore. Not quite blue, not quite green. The sun feels different on your skin, warmer somehow, more alive. The light it casts makes everything look slightly unreal, like you're living inside a dream. Around you, the landscape rolls in ways that seem impossible. Grasslands stretch beyond seeing, dotted with lakes that shimmer like mirrors. Rivers meander lazily through valleys carved by waters that ran 1,000,000 years before you were born. But it's the life around you that truly marks this as an alien world. Creatures move through the grass that would stop your heart with their beauty and terror. Giant elephants with tusks like curved spears, lions twice the size of any that exist today, hyenas as big as bears with bone-crushing jaws that could snap a tree trunk, and everywhere the sound of life. Not the quiet hum of a modern world, but the raw, unfiltered song of a planet still wild. Bird calls you'll never hear again. The thunder of hooves from herds that stretch to the horizon. The splash of fish jumping in rivers thick with life. You are home, and you are a stranger, because you are the newest thing on this ancient planet. Your species, Homo sapiens, has just appeared, just opened its eyes for the first time, just began to wonder what it might become. Your brain is different from anything that came before, larger, more connected, capable of thoughts that no other creature has ever thought. You can imagine things that don't exist, plan for futures that haven't happened yet, create solutions to problems you haven't even encountered. But right now, at this moment, you're just trying to survive another day on a planet that doesn't quite know what to do with you yet. The sun is rising, painting the alien sky in shades of gold and amber. You stretch, feeling muscles that are almost like yours but not quite. Your body is built for this world. Longer limbs for covering ground, hands that can grip and shape and create. Today, like every day, you'll have to figure out how to stay alive. and somehow, without knowing it, you'll take another small step toward becoming human. Lightning struck 3 days ago during the brief afternoon storm. The acacia tree on the distant ridge still smolders, and yesterday you managed to steal glowing coals from its base. Now you tend a small fire not made by human hands, but captured from the sky itself. It's precious beyond measure, this flame that keeps the night hunters away and makes raw meat taste better. Someone must always watch it, feed it, keep it alive. You pick up a rock, not just any rock. Your eyes, sharper than any creature before you, can see something others cannot. This stone has potential. You turn it over in your hands, feeling its weight, its texture. The morning dew makes it cool against your palms. Your fingertips, more sensitive than those of any animal, trace its edges like reading an ancient language. Here where it's already cracked, here where it wants to break. You understand something that separates you from every other living thing. This rock can become something else. Your grandfather might have simply thrown rocks at enemies. You see tools waiting to be born. You settle cross-legged on a patch of soft grass, creating your first workshop. The earth beneath you is still cool from the night, and small insects scatter as you arrange your materials. You find another stone, harder, heavier. The weight of it feels purposeful in your hand, like it was meant for this moment. You hold the first rock steady against your thigh, feeling the texture of your own skin against the cold stone. Then you bring the second one down with careful force. Not random smashing, precise, controlled strikes. Each hit was planned with an intelligence that took millions of years to evolve. Each chip was intentional, guided by a vision of what this stone could become. The sound echoes across the empty landscape. Crack, 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 the rhythm of creation, the first music humans ever made. Birds in nearby trees fall silent, listening to this new sound that has never existed in their world before. With each strike, flakes of stone fly away, sharp-edged pieces that catch the strange light of this ancient sun, glittering like fallen stars. You're not just breaking a rock, you're breaking the rules of what's possible. You're announcing to the universe that intelligence has arrived, and it will not accept limitations. The work is meditative, rhythmic. Your breathing slows to match the steady percussion, sweat beads on your forehead, despite the cool morning air. Your muscles remember motions they've never made before, as if this knowledge was always waiting in your bones for the right moment to emerge. The other creatures around you make things, yes. Birds build nests with intricate architecture. Bees create hives of mathematical precision, but they build the same things their ancestors built 1,000,000 years ago. They follow patterns carved into their bones by time itself, unable to deviate, unable to improve. You're different. Each tool you make is slightly better than the last. You learn from your mistakes. You remember what worked. You pass that knowledge to others. You've invented the concept of progress itself. After an hour of careful work, you hold something new in your hands. A sharp edge where there was none before. A point that can pierce hides thick enough to turn a lion's claws. A blade that can cut meat from bone, separate sinew from flesh, transform the world around you into exactly what you need it to be. This isn't just a tool, it's the future. It's the moment your species decided it wouldn't accept the world as it was given. It would make the world what it needed to be. You test the edge against your thumb. A tiny drop of blood beads up, bright red against your skin. Perfect. Sharp enough to cut. Controlled enough to use without cutting yourself. The balance between power and precision that will define every human achievement to come. Around you, other members of your group watch and learn. They see what you've done and try to copy it. Some succeed, their faces lighting up with the joy of creation. Some fail, but they keep trying, driven by the same irresistible urge to improve that brought you to this moment. All of them understand that something important has just happened, something that changes what it means to be alive on this planet. You've invented improvement. The idea that tomorrow can be better than today, that intelligence can be applied to problems to create solutions, that the future doesn't have to look like the past. The tool fits perfectly in your hand, like it was meant to be there, like your hand evolved for this exact moment. The moment when humans stopped accepting the world as it was and started making it what they needed. The sun climbs higher in the alien sky. You have work to do, food to find, shelter to seek, but now you have something your ancestors never had. You have an edge. Your throat makes sounds, but they aren't words yet. Not the way you understand words. There's something in between, sounds with meaning, but meaning that shifts like water, flows like wind through grass. You point to the antelope grazing near the waterhole. Your mouth makes a sound. Aka. The others in your group turn to look, their eyes following your gesture. They understand, not because you spoke a word, but because pointing plus sound plus context creates meaning. Language is being born in your throat, one sound at a time, but most of your communication happens with your hands, your arms, your whole body. You've developed a vocabulary of gestures that would make a mime weep with envy, a complex system of meaning that exists entirely in movement and touch. When you spot danger, you don't shout and alert every predator within miles. You drop low and extend your arm toward the threat, fingers spread wide like a flower opening in reverse. Your palm faces your companions, creating a visual barrier between them and the source of danger. Everyone knows this signal. Down, quiet, listen. The gesture carries the weight of survival, passed down through generations of humans who lived because they understood the silent language of caution. Your fingers speak their own dialect. A closed fist means to stop completely. An open hand means proceed carefully. 2 fingers pointed down mean water. 3 fingers pointed up mean high ground. Safety, the place to run when the world turns dangerous. When you find water, you cup your hands and bring them to your lips, letting the precious liquid spill between your fingers. The gesture is unnecessarily elaborate, designed not just to communicate but to share the sensory experience. The others can almost taste the water themselves when they see you drink. They understand immediately. Water, here, safe to drink, clean and sweet and life-giving. When food is scarce and hunting is needed, you mime the throw of a spear that doesn't exist yet. Your arm pulls back, your body coils with stored energy like a spring compressed to its limit. Your muscles remember the motion. Even though your species has never hunted with spears, the knowledge lives in your bones, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Then you release in a smooth forward motion, your entire body following through on the imaginary throw. No sound needed. The message is clear as lightning in a dark sky. Your people have dozens of these signals. Hundreds maybe. A whole language written in movement and gesture. A way of talking that doesn't need words, doesn't need sound, doesn't alert every dangerous creature within hearing distance to your presence. But something new is happening in your mind. Connections forming that weren't there before. Neural pathways lighting up like trails of fire through the darkness of unconscious thought. You're starting to link sounds with meanings in ways that feel permanent, stable, reliable. That sound you made for antelope, Aka. Yesterday you used it again, and everyone knew what you meant. Today another member of your group uses the same sound, and you understand immediately. A word has been born. It's crude, simple, but it's a beginning. A sound that always means the same thing. A piece of your thoughts that you can give to someone else, complete and intact. You experiment with this new possibility. You try linking sounds together. Aka, plus the sound you make for water. Aka, nai, antelope, in water. 2 concepts joined by sound into something larger, more complex, more useful than either idea alone. The others listen with the intensity of people witnessing magic, which in a sense they are. They try the sounds themselves, rolling the syllables around in their mouths like smooth stones. Some catch on quickly, their faces lighting up with the joy of discovery. Others struggle, their tongues not yet ready for this new way of thinking out loud. But slowly, word by word, you're all building something that has never existed before. A shared way of thinking out loud. A method for taking the private thoughts that live inside one mind and making them public, shareable, permanent. You don't know it yet, but you're creating the tool that will make everything else possible. Cities that house millions of people, all coordinating their activities through shared language. Stories that preserve knowledge across thousands of years. Science that builds understanding word by careful word. Art that captures beauty in sounds and shares it across time and space. For now, though, it's just practical. A better way to coordinate hunts, to share information about food and water and danger, to plan beyond the immediate moment, to imagine futures that don't exist yet and then work together to make them real. You settle down for the evening around a fire you didn't make but managed to keep alive. The flames dance in the growing darkness, casting shifting shadows on the cave wall behind you. The light flickers across your companions' faces, highlighting eyes that gleam with intelligence and curiosity. You watch the flames and make a new sound. Farm. Fire. The word feels right in your mouth, shaped by lips and tongue and teeth in a way that somehow captures something essential about the dancing light before you. The others repeat it. Farm. The sound travels around the circle like a gift being passed from hand to hand. Each person trying it out, tasting it, making it their own. You can see understanding dawn in their eyes. This isn't just noise, this is power. The ability to take something as complex as fire, its heat, its light, its danger, its necessity, and compress it into a single sound that everyone can share. By tomorrow it will be a word all of you know. Another small piece of the vast puzzle you're all solving together. The puzzle of how to be human, how to think together instead of just thinking alone, how to build understanding that's larger than any individual mind. You lie back against the warm stone, listening to your companions practice their new vocabulary. The sounds mix with the crackling of the fire, the distant calls of night hunters, the whisper of wind through grass. All of it blending into the first symphony of human language, rough and simple but beautiful in its possibility. Tomorrow there will be new words, new ways of linking thoughts together, new methods for sharing the contents of one mind with another. But tonight you're simply amazed by what you've discovered. The magic of making meaning from sound, of turning the air itself into a tool for thinking together. The fire burns lower. Your companions' voices grow softer as sleep approaches, but even in your dreams, you'll be building language, one word at a time. 4 days you've kept the lightning fire alive. 4 days of warmth and safety. 4 days of nights without terror, when darkness held back by dancing flames couldn't touch you. But this morning you wake to cold ashes where flame should dance. The fire has died despite your careful tending. Perhaps you fed it too much during the night and smothered it. Perhaps the wood was too green, or the wind shifted and stole the heat away. The reason doesn't matter now. What matters is that tonight your people will face the darkness, defenseless. Panic grips your group like a physical thing. Without fire, the next night could be your last. Children who have grown used to sleeping peacefully now understand what their parents' worried faces mean. Adults who felt safe for 4 precious days remember what it means to be prey. You search desperately for another source. The lightning-struck tree from days ago is now nothing but charred wood and cold ash. The sky is clear blue, mocking you with its perfection. No storms approach, no distant smoke signals another fire you might steal. That's when desperation becomes the mother of invention. Ket, consumed by frustration, hurls a stone at the ground. It strikes another rock with violent force. A spark flies from the collision, just one, tiny and brief but unmistakably real. Your mind, sharpened by necessity, recognizes possibility in that single spark. Strike them together deliberately. Another spark jumps between them, then another. For hours you experiment with the focused intensity of someone who knows death walks closer with each passing moment. Different stones produce different results. Some rocks create nothing but dull clicks. Others shower the ground with sparks hot enough to burn your skin. You learn to prepare tinder so fine it catches from the smallest ember, grass dried and shredded until it's softer than burnt down. You discover that breath applied at exactly the right moment can coax a reluctant spark into glowing life. The work is maddening. Your hands blister from striking stone against stone. Your back aches from hunching over tiny wisps of smoke that die before becoming flame. Hours pass with nothing but frustration and the growing certainty that night will find you helpless. But you refuse to accept defeat. Your people depend on you. The children who sleep peacefully because of fire need you to solve this problem. The hunters who venture farther because they know warmth waits at home need you to succeed. As the sun reaches its highest point, magic happens. A spark lands perfectly in your prepared tinder. Your breath turns it into a glowing coal. The coal ignites dry grass. The grass catches larger twigs. Within moments you have flame. But more than flame, you have understanding. Fire doesn't only come from lightning or existing fires. Fire can be born from stone and intelligence and the absolute refusal to accept that your people must live in fear. Your group gathers around this impossible flame, understanding that everything has changed forever. You no longer depend on lightning's rare gifts. You no longer fear the death of fire. You have become fire's master, not just its grateful servant. The technique spreads through your people like the flames themselves. Each person practices until blisters form on their hands. Some master it quickly, others struggle for days. But all understand the revolutionary principle: fire can be created from nothing but stone and determination. Soon your people will become known across the landscape for this miraculous ability. The fire makers, the ones who conquered darkness itself. But tonight, as flames dance once again in your circle, you simply feel grateful. Grateful for the accident that showed you possibility. Grateful for the desperation that drove you past failure. Grateful that your people will never again wake to cold ashes and the promise of terror. Fire changes everything. With fire you can live anywhere. With fire you can extend the day into night. With fire you become more than just another animal struggling to survive. You become human. The antelope is faster than you, stronger than you. It has better eyesight, better hearing, better smell. In every physical way that matters, it is superior. But you have something it doesn't. You can think beyond the immediate moment. You've been watching this herd for 3 days, learning their patterns, where they drink, when they drink, which direction they run when startled. You've mapped their behavior in your mind like a living diagram. The antelope think in moments. You think in sequences. This morning, you and 5 others from your group take positions around the water hole, not close enough to be seen or smelled, but close enough to act when the moment comes. You have no spears. Those won't be invented for thousands of years. You have no bows, no arrows, no metal blades. You have rocks, sticks, and most importantly, you have each other. The plan exists only in gestures and shared understanding. When the herd comes to drink, Ket will make noise to the north. The animals will run south. Moor and Gel wait to the south with stones. The frightened antelope will turn east. You and UBA wait to the east. Turn them west, where JT waits at the narrow passage between 2 rocks. It's coordination without language, teamwork without words, strategy that exists purely as shared thought. The antelope arrive as the sun reaches its highest point. 12 adults, several young. They approach the water carefully, heads up, alert for danger, but they're looking for lions, for leopards, for the threats they understand. They're not looking for intelligence. Ket makes his move. A sudden crash through the bushes, shouting and waving his arms. The herd bolts south, exactly as predicted. Moor and Gel appear, throwing stones and yelling. The antelope wheel east. You and UBA emerge from hiding. You don't try to catch them, you just need to turn them, guide them, funnel them toward the trap that JT has prepared. The confused animals, hemmed in on three sides, run the only direction left open, west, toward the narrow passage, toward JT. But JT doesn't try to catch them either. He's prepared something more clever. A pit covered with branches and grass, deep enough to trap, not deep enough to kill. Ancient wisdom that won't be written down for hundreds of thousands of years. Live prey stays fresh longer than dead prey. The lead antelope sees the trap too late. It tries to leap over, but its hooves break through the covering. It tumbles into the pit, bleating in fear and anger. One animal, enough meat to feed your group for days, enough hide to make covering for cold nights, enough bone to create new tools. You didn't run it down. You didn't overpower it. You outthought it. You used cooperation and planning, and the ability to imagine outcomes before they happened. This is the moment your species announced itself to the world, not through strength or speed or claws or fangs, through thinking, through working together, through refusing to accept that bigger and stronger always wins. The other antelope escaped, but they've learned something too. Humans are different. Humans are dangerous in ways that don't involve teeth and claws. Humans think. The sky tells stories, but you're only just learning to read them. Those dark clouds building on the horizon don't just mean rain, they mean flash floods in the dry riverbeds where you sometimes shelter. They mean lightning that could start fires you can steal. They mean mud that will preserve animal tracks for days, making hunting easier. One cloud holds all these futures. Your job is to figure out which one will come true. You lie on your back in the tall grass, watching the clouds move. Your mind makes connections that no other creature can make. If the wind shifts toward the mountains, the rain will be gentle. If it stays steady from the south, the storm will be violent. The color of the clouds matters too. Gray means water, black means danger, but there's a shade between the two that means something else entirely, something your language doesn't have words for yet. You watch a bird fly across your vision, high up, riding the wind currents that flow above the earth like invisible rivers. The bird knows things you don't. It can feel pressure changes in its bones. It can sense storms coming hours before you see the first clouds. But you're learning to read the bird's language. When it flies low, rain is coming soon. When it circles and calls, other birds will follow, and you'll know where to find water tomorrow. When it flies straight and fast toward the horizon, it's fleeing something you should probably flee to. Your people have begun to gather this knowledge. Ketch remembers that yellow clouds at sunset mean clear weather tomorrow. Moore knows that when the wind carries the smell of distant flowers, the herds will move north to find them. UBA can predict flash floods by watching how the ants behave. None of you understand why these signs work. You don't know about air pressure, or atmospheric moisture, or the migration patterns of insects. You just know that certain things happen before other things, and memory, that gift your species possesses in abundance, allows you to use those patterns. You're creating science without knowing it. Observation, hypothesis, testing. You watch the sky, make predictions and check your results. When you're wrong, you adjust your understanding. When you're right, you remember what led to success. The clouds you've been watching begin to change shape. The wind shifts. The smell of rain carries on the air. Your skin feels different. Electric. Alive. A storm is coming. A big one. You sit up and gesture to the others. Time to move. Time to find shelter. Time to gather dry wood before the rain makes everything wet and useless. But first you take one more look at the sky. Tomorrow, when the storm has passed, you'll remember exactly what these clouds looked like. You'll remember the smell of the air, the feel of the wind, the behavior of the birds. You'll add this knowledge to everything else you've learned about predicting weather. Your children will learn it from you. Their children will learn it from them. 300,000 years from now, humans will have satellites and computers and weather stations all over the planet. They'll predict storms with incredible accuracy, but it all started here, with you, lying in the grass, reading stories written in the sky. Darkness falls like a curtain, and the world transforms into something alien and terrible. During the day, you are the clever ones, the tool makers, the fire keepers, the ones who plan and think and solve problems. But at night, you become prey. The sounds begin as soon as the sun disappears. A low cough that might be a leopard testing its voice. The splash of something large moving through the waterhole. The crack of branches breaking under weight that shouldn't exist. You huddle around your fire with the others. 8 humans pressed close together, listening to the darkness hunt. Your ears have become instruments of survival. Each sound must be identified, categorized, understood. Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity? Is it something you can ignore, or something that might eat you before dawn? That huffing sound from the north. Hyenas. A pack of them, judging by the multiple voices. They're big here in this ancient world. Powerful enough to crush elephant bones. Smart enough to work together. Patient enough to wait for you to make a mistake. The hyenas aren't hunting you. Yet, they're talking to each other in their weird laughing language. Planning something, or maybe just gossiping about the day's hunts. You've learned that most predators are like people in some ways. They have social lives, politics, relationships. From the east comes a different sound. Rhythmic splashing from the waterhole. Something to drink. Something large. Your mind catalogues the possibilities. Elephant. Rhinoceros. Hippopotamus. All dangerous in different ways. All best avoided. But then you hear something else mixed in with the splashing. A rumbling sound that makes your bones vibrate. A sound like distant thunder, but continuous. You've heard this before. It's the sound of contentment. Whatever is drinking is relaxed, unafraid. This means opportunity. Predators avoid prey that feels safe. If the large drinker isn't worried, then the waterhole is probably free of lions and leopards. At least for now, you file this information away. Tomorrow, just after dawn, the waterhole might be safe for your group to visit. Might be. If you're careful, if you watch for fresh tracks, if you don't linger too long. A new sound cuts through the night. High-pitched, urgent. The alarm call of a small antelope. Something has startled them. Something is moving through their territory. The direction of the sound tells you which way to avoid tomorrow. The tone tells you it's a predator, not just weather or falling rocks. The sudden stop tells you something has been caught. You feel bad for the antelope, but you're also relieved. Whatever caught it won't be hunting again tonight. One less threat to worry about. Your fire crackles and pops, sending sparks up into the star-filled sky. The light pushes back the darkness in a small circle around your group. Beyond that circle, Africa hunts and feeds and dies in an endless cycle that began long before humans existed and will continue long after you're gone. But for now, at this moment, you're safe. You have fire, you have each other. You have the intelligence to read the night sounds and understand what they mean. A night bird calls from somewhere overhead. 3 short notes, then a longer warbling song. This sound you recognize. It's the sound of all clear. The bird is announcing that nothing dangerous moves nearby. For now, you settle back against the others, letting their warmth combine with yours. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new decisions, new problems to solve. But that's tomorrow. Tonight you listen to Africa sing its ancient songs, and you're grateful to be alive to hear them. Jai limps back to camp with something dark seeping through the animal hide wrapped around his leg. The leopard's claws found their mark during the hunt, and now red drops mark his path like breadcrumbs. You have no hospitals, no doctors, no antiseptic or antibiotics or surgical thread. You have something else though. You have an observation, Memory. The slow accumulation of knowledge about what works and what doesn't. Your grandmother showed you things before she died. Which plants stop bleeding? Which leaves reduce pain when chewed? Which tree bark, boiled in water, can fight the invisible enemies that turn small wounds into death sentences? You examine Jai's leg carefully. 3 parallel cuts. Deep but not bone deep. Clean edges. This is good. Torn flesh heals slowly. Cut flesh heals fast, if you can keep it clean. First, water. You send more to the stream with instructions to bring back water that flows fast over stones. Fast water is clean water. Still water can carry tiny demons that make wounds fester. While mortar fetches water, you gather supplies. The broad leaves that grow near the water hole. The ones with the sticky sap that seals cuts. The bitter bark from the fever tree, which you'll scrape into powder and mix with fat to make healing paste. Most importantly, you gather moss, not just any moss. The pale green moss that grows only on the north side of certain rocks. This moss soaks up blood like a sponge, but never sticks to wounds. Your grandmother called it friend moss, because it helped without hurting. You clean Jai's wounds with the fast-flowing water, washing away dirt and dried blood. He grits his teeth, but doesn't cry out. Everyone in your group understands that healing often hurts more than the original injury. Next comes the moss, packed gently into the deepest cuts. The moss turns red as it absorbs blood, but gradually the flow slows and stops. While you work, you chew the bitter bark, mixing it with your saliva to create a paste that fights infection. You spread the bark paste over the moss, then cover everything with the broad leaves. The sticky sap will hold the bandage in place while the wounds heal. Finally, you wrap everything with strips of hide, tied snug but not tight. Too tight, and the blood can't flow. Too loose and the bandage falls off. It's primitive medicine, but it works. Your people have been perfecting these techniques for generations, learning through trial and error which plants heal and which plants kill, which treatments help and which treatments harm. Jai will live. In a few days he'll be walking normally again. In a week he'll be ready to hunt. The scars will remain, but scars are just proof that you survived something that tried to kill you. You don't understand why the bitter bark fights infection. You don't know about bacteria or immune systems or chemical compounds. You just know that wounds treated with bark paste heal faster than wounds left alone. This knowledge makes you valuable to your group, not just as a tool maker or firekeeper, but as a healer. Someone who can fight death when it comes calling. 300,000 years from now, humans will have hospitals and surgery and medicines that seem like magic. But it all started here, with you. Chewing bark into paste, packing moss into wounds, learning to heal through careful observation and gentle hands. The healing knowledge lives in your memory now, waiting to be passed to others, waiting to save other lives, waiting to become the foundation of medicine itself. While Jai rests and heals, you sit by the dying fire and do something that no creature has ever done before. You make pictures that mean something. It starts with the clay you use to pack around his wound. Red-brown earth mixed with water, moldable, shapeable, responsive to your touch in ways that stone and wood are not. You roll a small piece between your palms, feeling its texture, smooth, cool, willing to become whatever you imagine. Your hands, those clever appendages that separate you from every other species, begin to move without conscious thought. The clay feels alive under your fingers, warm and pliant like living flesh. You push here, pinch there, roll this part thin. Gradually, something emerges from the shapeless mass. Something that looks like something. The others watch with curiosity. They've seen you make tools before, but this isn't a tool. This serves no practical purpose. It doesn't cut or scrape or dig or hunt. It just is. What you've made looks like an antelope, not perfectly, not photographically accurate, but recognizably antelope-shaped. 4 legs that actually look like legs. a body that curves in the right way, a head with bumps where horns should be. Moore reaches out to touch it, then pulls her hand back. She understands somehow that this is different. This tiny clay shape represents something larger. It's not just clay, it's an idea made visible, a thought you can hold in your hands. You set the clay antelope down carefully and make another. This one looks like a person, arms, legs, head, all in the right proportions. Simple, basic, but unmistakably human. When you're finished, you have two figures, the hunter and the hunted. The eternal dance of survival made it small enough to hold in your hands. But something is missing. You look around and spot what you need. Charcoal from the edge of the fire. Black, soft, willing to leave marks where you touch it. The cave wall behind you is smooth limestone, worn clean by countless seasons of rain and wind, perfect for drawing. You take the charcoal and begin to make lines, not random scratches, intentional marks that represent things. A circle for the sun. You make it large, taking up space on the wall, like the real sun takes up space in the sky. Stick figures for people, but not crude stick figures. These have personality. This one stands tall and proud. This one crouches, ready to hunt. This one points toward the horizon. Wavy lines for water, triangle shapes for the distant mountains. You're creating the world's first map, the first attempt to capture three-dimensional reality on a two-dimensional surface, the beginning of art as communication. The others gather behind you, watching the pictures emerge. They point and make sounds. Arca, says UBA, recognizing your drawing of an antelope. Nia, says Ket, pointing to your wavy waterlines. You've invented something revolutionary. A way to share information that doesn't require words or gestures. A way to show people things that aren't here right now. Yesterday's hunt. Tomorrow's plans. The location of water 3 valleys away. But it's more than just communication. As you draw, you feel something happening in your mind. The act of making pictures changes how you see the world. You notice details you missed before. The way antelope holds their heads. The curve of hills against the sky. The pattern of shadows cast by trees. Making art makes you more observant, more thoughtful, more human. You step back to look at your work. The cave wall now holds images, not just random marks, but meaningful representations. Pictures that tell stories. Pictures that preserve knowledge. Pictures that make the temporary permanent. You don't know it yet, but you've just taken the first step toward written language. Toward books and libraries and the internet, toward every form of human communication that will ever exist. You add more details to your drawing. A herd of antelope moving across the grassland, people working together to hunt them, fire burning in the center of the camp. The sun rises over mountains that stretch beyond the edge of vision. It's becoming a story, a record of your people's life in this place, a way to remember and share and pass down knowledge that might otherwise be lost. The fire burns lower as you work. The others settle in around you, some adding their own marks to the wall. Simple drawings at first, but growing more complex as they understand what's possible. Ket draws a series of marks that represent the phases of the moon. Moore creates symbols for different types of weather. UBA makes pictures of the plants used for healing, complete with details about which parts to use and how to prepare them. You're creating humanity's first library, the beginning of recorded history, the foundation of every form of information storage that will ever be invented. The wall fills with images as the night deepens. Tomorrow you'll add more. Pictures of today's hunt, today's weather, today's small victories and minor disasters. Not because these events are historically important, but because every piece of information might someday save a life. Your descendants will study these walls the way you study them now, looking for patterns, searching for wisdom, trying to understand how their ancestors survived challenges that might come again. This is how humans defeated time itself, not by living forever, but by creating memories that outlast any individual life. Pictures that speak across thousands of years, stories that connect past and future through the eternal present of human imagination. The charcoal feels warm in your fingers as you add the final touches to your drawing. A circle around the fire, representing the warmth and safety that brings your people together each night. You've created the world's first masterpiece, not because it's beautiful, though it is, not because it's technically perfect, though it serves its purpose, but because it's the first time a conscious mind has looked at the world and said, I can make this permanent. I can share what I see with others. I can speak to the future. Little Kaya fell while climbing the rocks near the waterhole. Her right arm hangs at a wrong angle, and her face is tight with pain she's too young to understand. In the natural world, injured young people often die. Predators target the weak. The group moves on without those who can't keep up. But your people are different. You've invented something that will define humanity forever. Compassion that overrides practical concerns. You examine Kaya's arm carefully. The bone is broken. You can feel the break through her skin. 2 pieces of bone that should be one. In your time, this is often a death sentence. Broken bones that heal wrong mean arms that can't hunt, can't gather, can't help the group survive. But you refuse to accept this outcome. You've watched animals heal from injuries, seen how bones knit back together when held straight and still. Your mind, always making connections, wonders if the same principles might work for humans. You gather materials, 2 straight sticks from the firewood pile, strips of hide cut from yesterday's hunt, soft moss to cushion the bones, clay mixed with water to create a hard shell once it dries. The others watch doubtfully. Resources spent on healing a child are resources not used for immediate survival. Food shared with someone who can't contribute to gathering more food. Time invested in an uncertain outcome. But something in your mind rebels against this cold calculation. This child is part of your group, part of your extended family, part of the future you're all working toward together. You position Kaya's arm carefully, lining up the broken bone as best you can tell. She whimpers but doesn't fight you. Even at her age, she understands that sometimes help hurts before it heals. The sticks go on either side of her arm, creating a framework to keep the bones straight. You wrap them in place with strips of hide, snug but not tight. Too much pressure will cut off blood flow. Then comes the clay. You spread it over the hide wrappings, creating a shell that will harden as it dries. A primitive cast that will keep the bone immobilized while it heals. When you're finished, Kaya's arm is locked in place from wrist to shoulder. She can't bend it or twist it or use it to climb rocks. But the bone has the best possible chance to heal straight and strong. The real challenge comes next. For weeks, maybe months, Kaya will need extra care. Extra food because healing takes energy. Extra protection because she can't defend herself. Extra patience because children with broken arms get frustrated and cranky. The group will have to carry more than their share of the burden. Hunt more to feed someone who can't hunt. Gather more to support someone who can't gather. Watch more carefully to protect someone who can't run away from danger. Every practical consideration says this is wasteful, inefficient, a drag on group survival that natural selection should eliminate. But you do it anyway. Because somewhere in your rapidly evolving brain, you've discovered something that transcends survival logic. You've discovered love that counts cost and pays it anyway. 3 weeks later, you'll cut away the clay cast and find Kaya's arm healed straight and strong. She'll grow up to become one of the best tool makers in your group, her skilled hands creating implements that help everyone survive better. But even if her arm had healed crooked, even if she had never contributed another thing to group survival, the choice to help her would still matter. Because it would prove that your species has learned to value individuals for their own sake, not just for their utility. This is the moment humanity discovered its heart. The dry season has lasted longer than anyone remembers. The waterhole that has sustained your group for months now shows more mud than water. Cracked earth spreads outward like a wound in the landscape. You stand at the edge of what used to be clear, flowing water. Now there's barely enough for a single day's drinking. The antelope and zebras have already moved on, following ancient migration routes to distant water sources. Soon you'll have to follow them or die, but moving means abandoning everything you know. The caves where you shelter, the tool-making sites where good stone can be found, the hidden places where edible plants grow. Starting over in unknown territory is dangerous, deadly even. Your group gathers around the dying waterhole as the sun reaches its highest point. 8 adults, 3 children, all looking to you for answers you don't have. Ket points north, where the gazelles went yesterday. That way lies the big river, a 3 days walk through open country where lions hunt. More points east, toward the mountains where water falls from rocks even in dry seasons. But the mountains are cold at night, and the paths are steep for the children. You close your eyes and try to think beyond the immediate problem. Your brain, that wonderful tool evolution gave your species, begins to work on solutions no other creature could imagine. Water doesn't just disappear, it goes somewhere. The rain that fell months ago didn't vanish into nothing. It soaked into the ground. It collected in low places. It hid in shaded spots where the sun couldn't steal it away. You've noticed things over the past weeks. Places where the grass stays green longer. Spots where insects gather in the early morning. Areas where the earth feels different under your feet. Softer, cooler, more alive. These might be signs. Clues that lead to water hidden just below the surface. You walk to a depression in the ground 50 paces from the main waterhole. Here, acacia trees grow thicker and greener than anywhere else. Here, you sometimes see animal tracks leading toward nothing visible. The others follow, watching as you kneel and press your ear to the earth. Listening, feeling, your fingers probe the soil, testing its moisture content. Just below the surface, the earth is damp, not wet, but not completely dry either. Water might be hiding here, just out of reach. You begin to dig, not with tools. You haven't invented proper digging tools yet, but with your hands, with flat stones, with sticks. The others join in, understanding your plan without words. The work is slow, hot, exhausting. The sun beats down as you scrape away handful after handful of earth. Sweat drips into the growing hole, salt mixing with dust and determination. 1 foot down, 2 feet, the earth gets darker, more damp. Your heart beats faster with hope and fear. What if you're wrong? What if you're just digging a hole while precious time slips away? Then UBA shouts. Her digging stick has struck something different. Wet earth, mud, and beneath the mud, the dark gleam of water seeping up from underground springs. You found it, hidden water. Life itself, buried just deep enough to escape the killing sun. The seepage is slow but steady. By evening you'll have enough water for several days. Enough time to explore other possibilities. Enough time to make careful decisions instead of desperate ones. As water slowly fills the bottom of your hand-dug well, you realize you've done something important. You've solved a problem that would have killed you, using nothing but observation and reasoning, and the willingness to work for an uncertain outcome. You've invented engineering, the application of human intelligence to reshape the physical world for human benefit. 300,000 years from now, humans will dig wells thousands of feet deep, accessing water hidden miles underground. They'll build dams and aqueducts and irrigation systems that span continents. But it all started here, with you, digging in the dirt with your bare hands, refusing to accept that the water was gone just because you couldn't see it. A figure appears on the ridge as the sun touches the horizon, human-shaped, but walking differently, moving with a gait you don't recognize, carrying something you can't identify. Your group falls silent. Strangers are dangerous. Other humans might mean competition for resources, territory disputes, violence over water and food, and the best shelter sites. But strangers also mean possibilities. New knowledge, different techniques, genes from outside your small group that might make your children stronger and smarter. The The figure stops at the ridge crest and raises both hands, palms visible, the universal gesture of peaceful intent. It calls out sounds that are almost like words, but not quite. A different dialect, a different approach to the same problem you're all solving, how to turn thoughts into shareable sounds. You respond with your own raised hands, your own careful sounds. The stranger begins walking down toward your camp, moving slowly, visibly avoiding anything that might be interpreted as threatening. As the figure gets closer, you can see more details. Male, about your age, wearing different clothing, not animal hides, but something woven from plant fibers, carrying tools you've never seen before. When he reaches your fire, he stops just outside the circle of light and sets down his burden. Then he backs away, hands still visible, waiting for permission to approach. This is diplomacy in its rawest form. Two groups of humans, each capable of killing the other, choosing instead to explore the possibility of cooperation. You gesture for him to approach. He settles down cross-legged at the edge of your circle, far enough away to seem non-threatening, close enough to communicate. He points to himself and makes a sound. Tok. His name, or at least what he wants you to call him. You point to yourself and make your own sound. The first exchange of individual identity between strangers. Tok reaches slowly for his burden and begins unpacking it. Tools unlike any you've made. Stones shaped in ways you never thought possible. Sharp edges that curve and spiral. Points that taper to impossible fineness. But these aren't just better versions of tools you know. These are made from something completely different. Black stone that gleams like water, sharp enough to cut with barely any pressure. Obsidian, though you have no word for it yet. Glass from the heart of volcanoes, harder and sharper than anything you've ever encountered. He demonstrates their use. These curved blade cuts hide more efficiently than your straight-edged tools, slicing through thick leather like it's soft grass. This spiraled point bores holes in wood without splitting it, creating perfect circles that could be used for new types of construction. This unusual scraper removes meat from bones with less waste, preserving more food for your people. But Tok wants something in return. He points to your fire, then mimics the motions of creating flame from nothing. He's heard about your group's fire-making techniques. The special method you've developed for creating flames from cold materials, without waiting for lightning to provide the initial spark. This is the moment trade is born. The revolutionary idea that both parties can benefit from in exchange. That sharing knowledge or resources can make everyone better off, rather than creating winners and losers. Your group gathers to examine Tok's obsidian tools more closely. You test the edge against your thumb, marveling at how easily it parts your skin. These blades could transform hunting, food preparation, and hide working. They could make survival easier in 100 different ways. But your fire-making knowledge is precious too. It took years to perfect the technique. Countless failed attempts, burned fingers, frustrating hours of producing nothing but smoke and blistered hands. The question is, do the benefits of Tok's tools outweigh the cost of sharing your hard-won secrets? You look around at your people, Ket, whose hunting would improve dramatically with sharper points. Mor, who spends hours scraping hides with inferior stone tools. Uba, whose food preparation would be faster and more efficient with obsidian blades. The decision becomes clear. Knowledge that helps only your group is less valuable than knowledge that could help many groups, if it means gaining access to resources and techniques you couldn't develop on your own. You agree to the trade. The fire-making lesson takes most of the afternoon. You show Tok how to select the right kind of dry grass for tinder, how to position the stones for maximum spark production, how to blow on the first wisps of smoke without extinguishing them. Most importantly, you teach him patience. Fire-making requires persistence, even with good technique. The willingness to keep trying, when the first 10 attempts produce nothing but smoke and frustration. Tok practices until he can create fire reliably. When he succeeds on 3 consecutive attempts, you declare the lesson complete. He now possesses knowledge that will transform life for his entire group. In return, he teaches you the secrets of obsidian knapping, how to identify the best raw material from volcanic output, how to strike the glass so it fractures in useful ways rather than shattering randomly, how to create different types of tools for different purposes. He shows you techniques that would have taken your people generations to develop on their own. How to heat the obsidian before working it, making it easier to shape. How to use pressure flaking to create impossibly sharp edges. How to repair broken tools rather than discarding them. By evening, both of you have gained more than you gave up. Tok returns to his people with fire-making knowledge that will make them more secure and independent. You possess a set of obsidian tools that will improve every aspect of daily survival. But the real innovation isn't the specific technologies exchanged. It's the concept of trade itself. The understanding that different groups can specialize in different skills, then share the benefits through voluntary exchange. This principle will eventually grow into complex economic systems spanning continents, markets, currencies, international trade, global supply chains. All of it built on the foundation you've just established, the idea that cooperation creates value that wouldn't exist otherwise. Your group's descendants will become known for their fire-making expertise. They'll trade this knowledge with dozens of other groups, receiving obsidian, special foods, rare materials, and new techniques in return. Tok's people will become the premier toolmakers in the region. Their obsidian blades will be traded across hundreds of miles, carrying their reputation and creating networks of mutual dependence and cooperation. Trade networks will spread knowledge faster than any individual group could develop it. Innovations that might take centuries to emerge in isolation will spread across continents in decades through voluntary exchange. As Tok disappears over the horizon the next morning, carrying his new knowledge back to his people, you chip away at an obsidian blade, marveling at its sharpness. This tool will make your work easier. Next week, it might save your life. But tonight you've discovered something even more valuable than better tools. You've learned that the world is bigger and more connected than you realized, and that your group's future is linked to the success of people you'll never meet, in places you'll never see. The first trade has just transformed two small groups of early humans into participants in something larger. A web of relationships that will grow stronger and more complex with each passing generation. Sarah's baby chooses the coldest night of the year to enter the world. The timing couldn't be worse. Food is scarce. Fuel for fires is running low. The group has been moving constantly, following animal herds south toward warmer valleys. This is no time for anyone to be weak or vulnerable. But babies don't wait for convenient moments. You help prepare the birth space in the shallow cave where your group has taken shelter. Extra furs spread on the ground. The fire built higher than usual, fed with the last of your good dry wood. Hot stones are placed around the birthing area to create pockets of warmth. Sarah labors through the night while wind howls outside the cave entrance. Her cries mix with the storm sounds, ancient rhythms of pain and effort, and the determination to bring new life into an uncertain world. When the baby finally arrives, just before dawn, it's smaller than hoped. A girl barely the size of a rabbit, with thin cries that seem too weak to survive in this harsh environment. In the natural world, weak offspring often don't make it. Resources go to the strong. Energy is invested in those most likely to survive and reproduce. Cold mathematics of genetic success. But your people have moved beyond such calculations. You take the tiny baby and do something no other species has ever done. You invent intensive care, skin-to-skin contact with multiple adults in shifts, maintaining constant body heat, frequent feeding with Sarah's milk, supplemented with pre-chewed foods when she's too exhausted to nurse. The whole group reorganizes around this fragile new life. Hunting trips are shortened so someone always stays near the baby. The best food goes to Sarah to maintain her milk supply. Extra fuel is gathered for the fire that must never be allowed to die. For weeks, the baby's survival is uncertain. She's slow to gain weight, prone to breathing problems in the cold air, unable to regulate her own temperature effectively. But your people persist with care that defies evolutionary logic. Time that could be spent hunting is spent holding her. Food that could strengthen healthy adults is used to maintain the milk that keeps her alive. Fuel that could warm everyone is concentrated on keeping her small body from freezing. This isn't just about one baby. This is about something larger. Your species is learning that the strong have responsibilities to the weak, that group survival sometimes means individual sacrifice, that the measure of success isn't just who lives, but how well they care for those who might not. The baby grows stronger as winter progresses. Her cries become more robust. Her appetite increases. Her ability to maintain body heat improves. By spring, she's a healthy, curious child who will grow up to become one of the most innovative tool makers your group has ever produced. But even if she hadn't, even if she had remained weak and dependent, the care given to her would still matter, because it proves that your species has learned something revolutionary. That worth isn't determined by strength or utility or contribution to group survival. That sometimes the most important thing strong people can do is protect those who can't protect themselves. This principle will echo through human civilization. It will become the foundation of medicine, education, social services, and human rights. It will drive humans to care for the elderly, the disabled, the sick, and the vulnerable. It all started here, in a cold cave, with a tiny baby who might not have survived anywhere else, and a group of early humans who decided that her life mattered enough to reorganize their world around keeping her alive. The argument has been building for days. Ketish wants to follow the herds north toward better hunting. Morph insists the group should stay near the reliable water source you discovered. UBA thinks everyone should split up, spreading risk across multiple territories. In other species, such disputes are settled by strength. The biggest, strongest, most aggressive individual makes the decision. Everyone else follows or faces the consequences. But your people are different. You're experimenting with something that has never existed before: collective decision-making. The radical idea that the group might be smarter than any individual within it. You gather around the evening fire as darkness settles over the landscape. Everyone sits in a rough circle. Even the children are included, though they're expected to listen rather than speak. This is the world's first parliament, the beginning of democracy. The invention of the idea that important decisions should involve everyone who will be affected by the consequences. Ket speaks first, laying out his argument for following the herds. Good hunting means more food. More food means stronger people. Stronger people can better defend against predators and survive harsh weather. The logic is sound, backed by observation and experience. Morpho counters with her case for staying put. Known water is certain water. The herds might lead to empty grasslands where nothing lives. Better to have sure resources than gamble on unknown possibilities. Her reasoning is equally valid, equally based on hard-won knowledge. UBA presents the third option, splitting the group. Some people follow the herds, others stay with the water. If one group finds good conditions, they can signal the others to follow. If one group faces disaster, the other survives to continue the bloodline. 3 different strategies, 3 sets of valid reasoning, 3 possible futures for your people. But the discussion doesn't stop with the initial presentations. Others begin to speak, adding details and concerns that the main speakers missed. Gel points out that the children are still recovering from the recent illness. Long-distance travel might be too hard on them right now. Vanni remembers that this season last year, the herds changed direction suddenly, stranding the predators that followed them. Following animals is always risky. Jex notes that splitting the group means splitting the knowledge. Each smaller group would have fewer experts in toolmaking, healing, firekeeping, and weather reading. The conversation continues deep into the night. Not arguing, exactly, but exploring. Testing ideas against experience, considering consequences that might not be obvious at first glance. Gradually, a consensus begins to emerge. Not unanimous agreement, but something close to it. The group will stay near the water for now, but send scouts to track the herds. If the scouts find good conditions and safe travel routes, the whole group will follow. If not, everyone stays put. It's a compromise that incorporates elements from all three original proposals, more cautious than Ket wanted, more flexible than more preferred, more unified than UBA suggested. But it's also smarter than any individual plan, because it benefits from the combined wisdom of the entire group. You don't realize it, but you've just invented the foundation of human civilization. The idea that complex decisions are best made collectively, that multiple perspectives lead to better outcomes than single-minded determination. This principle will grow and evolve over the next 300,000 years. It will become town councils and representative governments and international organizations. It will become the scientific method, with its emphasis on peer review and collective validation of ideas. Sometimes it will be perverted into mob rule or majority tyranny. Sometimes it will be slow and frustrating and seemingly inefficient, but at its core, it will remain the same principle you discovered tonight around a fire in ancient Africa. The idea that we're smarter together than we are alone. The fire burns down to embers as the last voices fall silent. Tomorrow, scouts will head north to check on the herds. The rest of the group will continue the careful work of survival near the water source. But tonight you've proven that humans can disagree without destroying each other. That different opinions can strengthen rather than divide a community. That the future belongs to those who can think together rather than just think fast. Old Nara is dying, and with her dies 50 years of accumulated knowledge that exists nowhere else in the world. She lies on soft furs near the fire, her breathing shallow and uncertain. Her eyes are cloudy with age, but her mind remains sharp enough to know that time is running out, sharp enough to understand what will be lost when she goes. Nara was the group's first healer, the one who discovered which plants stop bleeding and which ones fight infection. She knows the locations of water sources 3 days' walk in any direction. She can predict weather changes by the way certain birds behave. Most importantly, Nara remembers things. Stories passed down from the elders who raised her. Techniques learned through decades of trial and error. Knowledge that took lifetimes to accumulate. In a world without writing, human memory is the only library. When someone dies, all their learning dies with them, unless it's been passed on to others. You sit beside Nara as the sun sets, knowing this might be her last evening. The others gather around, understanding without words that something important is about to happen. Listen carefully, Nara whispers, her voice barely audible above the crackling fire. I have things to tell you, things you need to know. She begins with the healing plants. Not just which ones to use, but where to find them, when to harvest them, how to prepare them for maximum effectiveness. She describes the bitter bark that fights infection, demonstrating how to scrape it properly, how much to use, how to tell when it's working. You try to memorize every detail, but there's so much information, dozens of plants, each with specific properties, hundreds of techniques, each with subtle variations that can mean the difference between life and death. Nara sees your struggle and adapts her teaching. Instead of listing facts, she tells stories. The time she saved a child from fever using elderberry tea. The hunt where a wounded man survived because she knew how to pack wounds with the right kind of moss. Stories are easier to remember than lists. They create pictures in your mind, emotional connections that help facts stick without realizing it. Nara is inventing the oral tradition, the foundation of all human education before the development of writing. She moves on to weather lore, how to read the colors of sunset to predict tomorrow's conditions, which cloud formations mean dangerous storms, why certain animals behave differently before major weather changes. Each piece of knowledge is embedded in the narrative. The story of the Great Flood when she was young, and how her grandmother taught her to recognize the warning signs. The tale of the terrible drought, and the techniques that kept the group alive when all the obvious water sources failed. As the night deepens, Nara shares knowledge about human nature itself, how to settle disputes before they turn violent, how to make decisions that the whole group can accept, how to maintain cooperation when resources are scarce and tempers run short. This might be the most valuable information of all. Technical knowledge keeps bodies alive, but social knowledge keeps communities alive. The ability to work together is what separates successful human groups from those that self-destruct. You realize that you're witnessing something unprecedented. The first deliberate attempt to transfer the accumulated wisdom of an entire lifetime to the next generation. Nara isn't just talking to pass time before she dies. She's ensuring that her knowledge survives even though her body won't. Other members of the group contribute their own memories of Nara's teachings, times when her expertise saved lives, techniques she demonstrated that made survival easier, stories she told that preserved even older knowledge. Together you're creating a collective memory, larger and more detailed than any individual mind could hold. Nara's wisdom filtered through the experiences and understanding of everyone who learned from her. By dawn, Nara's breathing has become even more labored, but she smiles when she sees the sun rise, knowing that she's accomplished something important. The knowledge she spent a lifetime accumulating won't die with her. She passes away quietly as the morning light grows stronger, but her wisdom lives on in the minds and memories of those who listened through the night. You bury Nara with a ceremony appropriate to her status as the group's first true teacher. Then you begin the long process of organizing and preserving what she taught you, turning her individual knowledge into the collective inheritance of your people. This is how human civilization really advances. Not through brilliant individual discoveries that revolutionize everything overnight, but through the patient accumulation and transmission of hard-won knowledge from one generation to the next. Nara was more than a healer. She was humanity's first librarian. Her legacy isn't just the specific techniques she discovered, but the example she set of learning carefully, remembering accurately, and teaching generously. 300,000 years later, humans will have universities and research institutions and digital databases containing more information than a single mind could process in a lifetime. But it all started here, with an old woman telling stories by firelight, making sure that what she learned wouldn't be lost when she was gone. You are standing in the cave where your people have lived for more generations than anyone can count. The walls around you hold memories carved in charcoal and ochre, layered like the rings of an ancient tree. The oldest drawings, high on the walls where children's hands couldn't reach them, show animals that no longer exist. Creatures with impossible antlers, predators larger than any that hunt today, herds of beasts your grandparents described, but you've never seen. These pictures are more than decoration. They're humanity's first attempt to conquer time itself, to preserve experiences beyond the lifespan of those who lived them, to build a collective memory that grows rather than fades. You trace your finger along a line of handprints near the cave entrance. Small hands, large hands, hands with missing fingers from old injuries. Each print represents a life. A person who stood exactly where you're standing now, who breathed the same air, who faced the same challenges of survival in an uncertain world. Some of these hands belong to people you know. Nara's print is here, from when she was young and her fingers were strong and steady. Ket's father, who died in the great sickness before you were born. Children who grew to adulthood, and children who didn't. But many of the prints are older, left by people whose names are forgotten, whose stories have faded into the general memory of the group. They lived, they struggled, they survived long enough to place their hands on this wall. Then they passed into the kind of immortality early humans could achieve, becoming part of the place itself. You dip your own hand in ochre and press it against a bare section of wall. Your print joins the others, adding your mark to the growing record of human presence in this place. The newest drawings, down low, where anyone can reach them, show recent events. The successful mammoth hunt 3 seasons ago, the great storm that brought fire from the sky. The birth of twins last spring, recorded as two small figures side by side. But it's the middle layer of drawings that tells the richest stories, pictures painted by your parents' generation and their parents before them, a visual history of your people's life in this valley, preserved in pigment and memory. Here's the flood that drove everyone to the high caves for a full moon cycle. There's the year the great herds changed their migration route, forcing your people to learn new hunting grounds. This collection of scratches and symbols represents the winter when sickness killed half the group, and the survivors had to completely reorganize their way of life. Each drawing is a lesson, a warning, a piece of knowledge that might prove crucial someday. The pictures don't just record what happened, they preserve what was learned from each experience. You study a complex composition that shows a drought lasting 3 years. The drawings progress from full water holes to empty depressions to desperate digging for underground sources. But they also show which techniques worked, which plants remained green when others died, which animals led hunters to hidden water. This is your inheritance, not just the genetic legacy written in your blood, but the cultural legacy written on these walls. The accumulated wisdom of dozens of generations, each building on what came before. You realize that you're not just living your own life, you're continuing a story that began long before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. Your experiences, your discoveries, your mistakes and successes will all become part of this growing record. Tomorrow you'll add new drawings to the walls. Pictures of today's hunt, today's weather, today's small victories and minor disasters. Not because these events are historically important, but because every piece of information might someday save a life. Your descendants will study these walls the way you study them now, looking for patterns, searching for wisdom, trying to understand how their ancestors survived challenges that might come again. Cave art isn't just decoration or entertainment. It's humanity's first library, the beginning of recorded history, the foundation of every form of information storage that will ever be invented. 300,000 years from now, humans will have books and computers and vast digital archives containing the accumulated knowledge of the entire species. But it all started here, with you, dipping your hand in ochre and pressing it against a stone wall, adding your mark to the long memory of your people. The handprint dries slowly in the firelight. When it's completely dry, it will remain on this wall for thousands of years. Long after your bones have returned to dust, your hand will still be here, reaching across time to touch the hands of descendants you'll never meet. This is how humans defeated death, not by living forever, but by creating memories that outlast any individual life. Late at night, when the others are asleep, you sit by the dying fire and listen to your daughter make sounds that have never existed before. Kira is 3 years old, born into a world that's changing faster than any generation before her has experienced. She doesn't just grunt and gesture like the adults did when they were children. She creates new sounds, combines them in ways that seem almost like music, almost like meaning. Makatu, she whispers to herself, playing with a small clay figure you made for her. The sounds flow together smoothly, each syllable connected to the next in patterns that feel deliberate, purposeful. You don't understand what she means, but you recognize that she means something. These aren't random noises, they're attempts at communication that go beyond anything your generation achieved at her age. Kira represents something new in human development. Her brain is wired differently than yours, shaped by growing up in a world where proto-language already exists. While you learn to gesture first and add sounds later, she's developing both simultaneously, creating combinations that feel almost like true speech. Makatu, she says again, holding up the clay antelope, then she points to the fire and makes a different sound. Fanaku, different syllables, different rhythm, but equally purposeful. You realize she's naming things, not just making sounds associated with objects, but creating distinct sound patterns that consistently refer to specific items, words in the most basic sense. But more than that, she's experimenting with combinations. Makatu, Fanaku, she whispers, moving the clay antelope toward the fire. She's linking her words together, creating meaning that's larger than the individual parts. This is syntax being born, grammar in its earliest form. The revolutionary idea that thoughts can be built from smaller pieces, arranged in patterns that create complex meanings. You try to copy her sounds. Makatu, you say, pointing to the clay figure. She nods eagerly and repeats it more clearly. Makatu. Then she points to your mouth and makes encouraging noises, teaching you her language the way you once taught her to walk. Other children in nearby groups are developing similar innovations. Different sounds, different patterns, but the same underlying drive to create more sophisticated communication. They're all part of the same developmental leap that's happening across your species. What they're creating will spread. Children will teach other children. Adults will adopt the clearest and most useful innovations. Gradually, these proto-words will become real words, shared by entire communities. Kira doesn't know she's witnessing the birth of human language. She's just playing, exploring, pushing against the boundaries of what's possible. But her play is creating the foundation for literature, philosophy, science, and every other human endeavor that depends on complex communication. You settle back against the cave wall, listening to your daughter invent the future one syllable at a time. Tomorrow you'll try to learn more of her sound patterns. You'll practice combining them the way she does. You'll help her innovations spread to other members of your group. But tonight, you're simply amazed by the miracle of a child's mind, reaching beyond what anyone thought possible, creating solutions to problems that previous generations didn't even know existed. The fire burns lower. Kira's voice grows softer as sleep takes hold. But even in her dreams you can hear her lips moving, practicing new combinations, exploring new possibilities. Language is being born in her sleeping mind, and with it, everything that will make humans truly human. The decision to leave comes slowly, built from 100 small observations that add up to one unavoidable conclusion. This place that has been home for so many generations can no longer support your people. The herds have changed their migration routes, following new grass patterns that grow farther north each year. The reliable water sources are failing as weather patterns shift. Even the tool-making stones are becoming harder to find as your people exhaust the local deposits. Most difficult of all, your group has grown too large for the available resources. Where once 8 people lived comfortably in this valley, now 23 compete for the same food, water, and shelter sites. This is success presenting itself as a crisis. Your people have survived so well that they've outgrown their home. The council meetings stretch late into many nights as different voices advocate for different solutions. Some want to split the group, sending part of the population to establish new territory while others remain in the ancestral lands. Others argue for seasonal migration, following the herds north in summer and returning south for winter. It's a middle path that preserves connections to the homeland while adapting to changing conditions. But you find yourself drawn to a more radical idea: permanent migration to completely new territory, following the herds all the way to whatever lands lie beyond the northern mountains. It's a terrifying prospect. Everything your people know is built around this valley. The cave paintings that preserve your history, the burial sites where ancestors rest, the detailed knowledge of every water source, every shelter site, every place where useful plants and stones can be found. Leaving means abandoning this accumulated wisdom and starting over in unknown territory. It means walking away from everything that defines your group's identity and relationship to the land. But it also means possibilities, new resources, new territories to explore and understand, new challenges that will force your people to innovate and adapt in ways that staying put never could. The final council meeting lasts until dawn. Everyone speaks. Even the children are asked for their thoughts, their fears, their excitement about the unknown. When the sun rises, consensus has emerged, not unanimous agreement, but something close to it. The group will attempt the Great Migration, All of you together, carrying everything essential, leaving behind everything that's too heavy or too tied to this specific place. The preparations take weeks. Tools must be evaluated and sorted. The most essential items are kept, everything else is abandoned or left for any group that might settle in the valley after you leave. Food must be prepared for the journey. Dried meat, processed plant foods that will keep for weeks without spoiling. Concentrated nutrition in the lightest possible form. Knowledge must be transferred from the cave walls to human memory. The most important images are traced and retraced until multiple people can recreate them from memory. Stories that explain the drawings are told and retold until they become part of the group's oral tradition. Fire must be carefully preserved. Coals wrapped in green leaves and clay, designed to smolder slowly for days without bursting into open flame or dying completely. The sacred flame that has burned in your caves for generations will travel with you to light the first fires in your new home. The day of departure arrives with unseasonable warmth, as if the land itself is encouraging your journey. You take one last look at the painted cave walls, the familiar hunting grounds, the water sources that have sustained your people since time beyond memory. Then you turn north and begin walking toward the unknown. The first day covers familiar territory, hunting grounds you've visited, water sources you've used, landmarks that have guided your people for generations. But by evening you're camping in a place where no member of your group has ever spent the night. The second day takes you into truly unknown territory. The landscape looks similar to home, but subtly different. The plants are almost the same, but not quite. The animal tracks show familiar species mixed with others you don't recognize. Your people adapt quickly, applying familiar techniques to new situations. Water finding skills work in different geology. Tool-making knowledge transfers to new types of stone. Hunting strategies prove effective against similar prey in unfamiliar terrain. By the end of the first week, you've covered more distance than most humans travel in their entire lives. The northern mountains grow larger each day, promising new challenges and new opportunities beyond their peaks. This is how humans will spread across the planet. Not through single heroic journeys, but through thousands of small migrations like this one. Groups growing too large for their territories, following resources into new lands, adapting their knowledge to new conditions. Each migration will carry human culture a little farther from its African origins. Each adaptation will create new solutions that can be shared with other groups. Each successful settlement will become the launching point for the next wave of exploration. Your particular journey will take months to complete. You'll face challenges that test every survival skill your people have developed. Some members of your group won't live to see the new homeland, but those who do will establish human presence in territory that has never known the sound of human voices. They'll develop new techniques for surviving in different conditions. They'll create new art, new tools, new social arrangements adapted to their new environment. And someday, when their descendants face their own resource pressures, they'll look beyond their horizons and begin their own great migration, carrying human culture ever farther into the unknown. The journey that begins today will echo across hundreds of thousands of years as humans spread from Africa to Asia to Europe to Australia to the Americas. All of it made possible by groups like yours willing to leave behind everything familiar in pursuit of new possibilities. Tonight you camp under unfamiliar stars, listening to the sounds of a landscape you don't yet understand. But you're not afraid, you're excited. Because tomorrow you'll discover something that no human has ever seen before, and the day after that, you'll do it again. The journey north has taken 4 months, and the world beyond the mountains is like nothing you could have imagined. Trees grow here that dwarf the largest specimens from your homeland. Their trunks are so wide that your entire group, holding hands, couldn't reach around them. Their canopy blocks so much sunlight that the forest floor exists in perpetual twilight, carpeted with strange plants that have learned to thrive in shadow. The animals are different too, familiar species but larger versions, deer the size of horses. boars that could challenge a lion, birds with wingspans broader than a person's outstretched arms. But it's the abundance that overwhelms you most. Streams that run clear and cold even in the dry season. Fruit trees are heavy with food that no human has ever tasted. Vast meadows where edible plants grow so thickly you could gather a day's food without moving more than a few steps. This is what the world offers to those brave enough to seek it. Resources beyond imagining for those willing to learn how to use them. Your people scatter across the landscape like children in a vast playground, exploring and discovering with an excitement that's infectious. Every day brings new marvels, new problems to solve, new opportunities to test the adaptability that has brought you this far. Kel discovers a type of stone that's harder than anything you've worked with before, but that creates tools with edges so sharp they seem to cut light itself. Mora finds plants whose roots, when properly prepared, provide more nutrition than anything your people have ever eaten. The children adapt fastest of all. Kara, now speaking in full sentences that blend the old language with new words she invents for things that don't exist in your homeland, becomes the group's scout for safe climbing routes through the giant trees. But adaptation requires more than just exploiting new resources. It requires developing new social arrangements, new ways of organizing yourselves to take advantage of opportunities that didn't exist in your old territory. The abundance changes how you think about sharing. In the homeland, resources were scarce enough that every decision involved trade-offs. Food given to one person meant less for everyone else. Time spent on one activity meant less time for essential survival tasks. Here, for the first time in your people's history, there's enough for everyone. More than enough. So much that waste becomes possible, and with it, the luxury of experimentation. You can afford to try new foods without worrying that failure means starvation. You can attempt new tool-making techniques without risking the loss of essential implements. You can explore new territories without fear that absence from known resources will prove fatal. This freedom transforms your people's relationship with innovation. Instead of careful, conservative changes made only when absolutely necessary, you begin to innovate for the joy of it. Because improvement is possible, because good enough no longer feels like enough when better is achievable without unacceptable risk. The first permanent structures your people build in the new territory reflect this change in thinking. Instead of simple shelters designed only for protection from weather and predators, you create living spaces that consider comfort, aesthetics, even beauty. The new homes are larger than necessary. They include areas dedicated to specific activities, tool making, food preparation, rest, social gathering. They feature innovations like raised sleeping areas that stay dry even in heavy rain, and storage spaces that keep food accessible but protected from animals. Most remarkably, they include spaces set aside purely for art. Areas where the walls are prepared specifically for painting, where good light is available for detailed work, where artistic materials can be stored and organized. Art for art's sake. Beauty pursued for its own value, not just as a byproduct of functional activities. This is what abundance makes possible. Your people are becoming something new, not just survivors scratching out an existence at the margins of possibility, but creators with enough security to pursue goals beyond immediate necessity. The cave paintings you create in your new home are different from those in the old territory. More detailed, more ambitious, more focused on beauty and meaning than on simple record keeping. They show not just what happened but how it felt. Not just practical information, but emotional truths about what it means to be human in a world full of wonders. This is how civilizations begin. Not with grand plans or revolutionary insights, but with groups of people who find themselves in circumstances that allow them to reach beyond survival towards something larger. Your descendants will build cities in this territory. They'll develop agriculture, metallurgy, and complex social institutions. They'll create art, literature, philosophy, science. But it all starts here. with you, standing in a forest of giants, breathing air that tastes of possibility, understanding for the first time that the world is larger and more generous than you ever dared to imagine. Tonight you'll sleep on soft moss under a canopy of leaves that filters starlight into patterns of impossible beauty. Tomorrow you'll continue the great work of becoming human. 5 years have passed since the Great Migration, and the children born in this new land are different from any humans who came before them. Kira, now 8, speaks with a fluency that astonishes the adults, not just words but complex sentences that express abstract ideas. She can describe things that don't exist, plan events that haven't happened yet, explain concepts that exist only in her imagination. More remarkably, she's teaching these skills to others. The younger children learn from her, developing language abilities that surpass even her own. Each generation builds on the achievements of the previous one, reaching heights that seemed impossible just years before. But language is only the beginning of what these children represent. They approach problems differently than their parents. Where the adults rely on techniques proven through generations of use, the children experiment fearlessly with new approaches. They combine old knowledge in new ways, creating solutions that work better than anything the adults could have imagined. Take social cooperation. The adults work together because they have to, minus survival depends on it. But these children cooperate because they want to. They play games that require coordination on a scale the adults find hard to understand. Complex activities involving dozens of participants, elaborate rules that everyone must remember, shared goals that can only be achieved through precise teamwork. Watching them play, you realize they're practicing for a type of society that doesn't yet exist. A social organization based on voluntary cooperation between large numbers of individuals, all working toward shared objectives. The adults cooperate too, of course, but their cooperation is limited by kinship, personal relationships, and direct reciprocity. The children are learning to cooperate with anyone, based purely on shared rules and common purpose. They're inventing civilization. You see it in how they organize their games. Complex hierarchies based on skill and knowledge rather than age or physical strength. Leadership roles that rotate depending on the activity. Decision-making processes that ensure everyone's voice is heard. These aren't just children playing. They're developing the social technologies that will make cities, governments, and large-scale human cooperation possible. The children born in this new land will face challenges their parents can't imagine, but they'll also have capabilities that previous generations never dreamed of. They'll think faster, communicate more effectively, and cooperate more extensively. Most importantly, they'll expect continuous improvement. For them, the way things have always been done isn't an argument for maintaining tradition. It's a starting point for innovation. Kira approaches you as the sun sets, but instead of carrying a tool or toy, she brings you something entirely different. A collection of symbols she's scratched into a piece of bark. Not pictures of things, but marks that represent sounds. Letters, though that word won't exist for thousands of years. Look, she says, pointing to the marks. These sounds for the words we use. I can make the words stay even when we're not saying them. You realize you're looking at humanity's first attempt at written language. Not the pictographic systems that will develop in other parts of the world, but something more abstract. Symbols that represent the sounds of speech itself. She demonstrates how it works. Each mark stands for a sound. Combine the marks and you recreate the word. String words together, and you can preserve entire thoughts, complete ideas, complex instructions. Now we can keep the important things even when people forget, she explains. The healing knowledge, the weather signs, the stories about the old homeland. This is the moment writing is born, not from the need to keep trade records or royal genealogies, but from a child's insight that knowledge is too valuable to trust to human memory alone. But even more revolutionary than the symbols themselves is the principle behind them. Kira has discovered that spoken language can be broken down into component parts, analyzed and reconstructed. She's invented the concept of systematic analysis itself. This analytical approach will spread beyond writing. The same mental skills that allow her to decompose speech into sounds will eventually be applied to every aspect of human experience. Mathematics, which breaks numbers into components. Science, which breaks natural phenomena into causes and effects. Engineering, which breaks complex problems into manageable parts. The other children gather around as Kira demonstrates her writing system. They pick it up quickly, each adding their own innovations. Ways to show when voices rise or fall. Marks that indicate when to pause. Symbols for ideas that don't have sounds. Within weeks they've created a complete writing system, not as sophisticated as what will emerge thousands of years later, but functional, capable of preserving knowledge, sharing ideas across distance, and allowing thoughts to outlive the minds that create them. You watch these children work and realize they're not just playing with symbols. They're building the foundation for every form of human knowledge that will ever exist. Libraries, schools, universities, research institutions, all of it grows from this moment, when an 8-year-old girl looked at scratch marks on bark and saw the future. The children born in this new land don't know that 300,000 years from now, their descendants will walk on the moon, cure diseases that haven't been discovered yet, and communicate instantly with people on the other side of the planet. But they would not be surprised, because they've already learned the most important lesson, that humans don't have to accept the world as it is. They can imagine how it might be better, and then work together to make those improvements real. Tonight, listening to the children of tomorrow, plan the day after tomorrow, you understand that your species has crossed a threshold from which there will be no return. You're no longer just clever animals trying to survive in a dangerous world. You've become something new. Something that creates its own future through the power of imagination, cooperation, and the relentless pursuit of better ways to be human. The fire burns low as the children's voices grow softer, but their dreams burn brighter than any flame, lighting the way toward possibilities that no previous generation could have conceived. 300,000 years have passed since those first humans opened their eyes to an alien Earth. The children you watched grow up in the new homeland became the ancestors of everyone who has ever lived since. Their innovations in language, tools, and cooperation spread across the planet. Their descendants carried human culture to every continent, every environment, every challenge the Earth could offer. The obsidian tools traded between distant groups became global networks of commerce. The cave paintings that preserved knowledge became libraries, universities, and the internet. The children's games that practiced cooperation became governments, corporations, and international organizations. The ability to imagine better futures became science, art, philosophy, and every other field of human endeavor. But most importantly, the compassion that led your people to care for injured children, to heal the sick, to include everyone in the circle of protection that became the foundation of human rights, social justice, and the belief that every life has value. You carry their legacy in your DNA, their curiosity in your questions, their ingenuity in your solutions, their cooperation in your communities. Every time you learn something new, you're following the example of children who invented language. Every time you help someone who can't help themselves, you're honoring ancestors who chose compassion over efficiency. Every time you imagine a better future and work to make it real, you're continuing the great project they began. The struggles you face today, the challenges that seem impossible, the problems that appear unsolvable, your ancestors faced worse with far fewer resources. They survived ice ages, predator attacks, diseases, natural disasters, and countless other threats that should have ended the human story before it really began. They survived because they refused to give up, because they took care of each other, because they believed that tomorrow could be better than today if they were willing to work for it. That strength lives in you, that resilience flows in your blood, that hope whispers in your dreams. Rest well tonight, knowing you are the child of survivors. Sleep peacefully, knowing their courage lives on in you, and wake tomorrow ready to continue their greatest creation, the ongoing story of what it means to be human. Good night, sleep well, my dear friend. The ancestors dream alongside you. First humans on an alien Earth.